And so as we noticed that senior leadership teams are struggling to come together to do this really crucial, important, stressful, impactful work as a senior leadership team, that if they were dysfunctional in any way collectively as a team, that's going to have a negative ripple effect and or negative impact on the positive change that, they were actually the chief stewards of.
Welcome to Culture Change RX, the podcast for healthcare professionals that are committed to creating a thriving workplace culture, improving the experiences of employees and patients, and ultimately unlocking their organization's next level of potential. I'm Sue Tetzlaff, your host and co-founder of Capstone Leadership Solutions. Join me and my insightful guests each week as we share actionable insights for navigating the crucial people side of the business of healthcare. Subscribe now for a weekly dose of Culture Change RX. Now let's dive into this week's conversation where culture change takes center stage.
Thanks for pressing play on this episode of Culture Change RX. I am Sue Tetzlaff, and I am the host of Culture Change RX. And in these solo episodes, which we call Culture Bytes, it is just me here with you in the studio today. I have no guest, and I always have a focus for these episodes. And today that focus is on CQI for leadership. CQI, continuous quality improvement. This is where my roots are in senior leadership. As many of you may know, my background is before co-founding Capstone Leadership Solutions almost 13 years ago. I was a healthcare executive for almost 22 years. Most of those years, I was working in areas of chief nursing officer, chief operating officer. But my very first role in senior leadership was being the chief quality officer. And so my background and my love and my passion for improving all things healthcare really took root and gained some traction and experience in that first senior leadership role. And I absolutely love it. And you can't take it out of me. I carry it with me everywhere I go in my career and in Capstone. So in particular, the focus I wanted to bring on continuous quality improvement today is on the continuous improvement of individual or groups of leaders. And when we look at an approach to doing that, coaching is a format or an aid to assist in growing leaders, strengthening leaders, fostering their development, and improving their effectiveness. And when we do that, we're really strengthening the organization, right? I truly believe that when we strengthen an individual leader, when we strengthen an entire leadership team, we are truly taking action to strengthen the organization. And not just for navigating today's challenges, but for the purpose of really creating meaningful, lasting impact through the work of leadership. As organizations and individual leaders and groups of leaders are getting ready for this new year ahead, I was really thinking about this idea that there's almost like 3 tiers of leadership improvement focus or CQI focus. And I wanted to just highlight that today because it might be one of those areas where there's a gap or a need in your organization. And it might be this year, right? Where you say, hey, let's fill that gap. So the 3 tiers of CQI in leadership, I'm going to break that down into 1, individual leaders. So the focus of CQI could be on an individual leader elevating their skill, knowledge, effectiveness as a leader, whether that's an executive or even a middle manager or otherwise, is that they could have a CQI plan, an individual plan for growing their effectiveness and improving their impact as a leader. So that's one area of focus, or one tier of focus, is an individual leader's development. And then there's the tier of senior leadership team strengthening. So looking at the entire leadership team as a whole and looking at not just the individuals on that team and strengthening their effectiveness as they work together as a team for their joint responsibilities to steward the organization, to oversight its day-to-day operations, but most importantly, to situate the organization for the future. So planning and executing on plans for the future for growing and improving the organization and how they work together as an effective leadership team at that senior leadership level. So that can be an area of focus of CQI is senior leadership team strengthening. And then there's your entire leadership team as well. So all of your leaders, senior leaders plus middle managers collectively, that entire leadership team can be a separate focus of continuous quality improvement. And my experience over now 30 plus years as somebody working in or now training, coaching, and planning for healthcare organizations as a partner to them through our work at Capstone Leadership Solutions. My background, my experience has shown me enough to believe that it's true that focusing on each of these tiers has a really compounding, synergistic, profound effect. If you have CQI efforts underway in all three tiers or all three levels of this, individual leaders that are working individually on their specific opportunities to improve or to leverage strengths or build further strengths, that's one level. The entire senior leadership team and how they work together to do their important work and how that is always improving. And then your entire leadership team. Now, through our work with Capstone Leadership Solutions, we're primarily focused on 2 out of these 3 tiers. The 2 tiers where we have the most experience and the most impact and where we provide the most value in these 3 areas is in the areas of 1, strengthening an entire leadership team. So it is one of the major approaches that we use when we're working alongside a partner organization, which is a healthcare organization that is committed to multifaceted, long-term, systematic improvement using an approach of engaging employees and strengthening and synergizing leaders. And so one of the major things that we are working on is helping them create 2 things in this area. 1, a model for leadership. They base that on 9 core leadership practices and they make it theirs, they make it better. They decide how they're going to apply that model where they work to create staying power and ownership and buy-in for that model. But strengthening their leadership team, continuous quality improvement of strengthening their entire leadership team fundamentally is built around 9 core leadership practices for their adaptation of creating, this is how we lead around here, this is our standard work for leaders, and really committing to that model of leadership as this is how we lead around here. And then the second part of that is creating an internal systematic cadence of purposeful activities to onboard new leaders to that model, to continually develop their leaders to that model, to make them more competent and consistent in getting the biggest impact from that model, studying and adjusting that model, right? And so that continuous process of training and mentoring and developing and providing resources and support, that we help them create an internal model for their leadership and an internal process for continually developing their leaders to that model and helping them achieve success with that model. So that really is CQI, right? Plan, do, study, adjust. Plan the model and then plan the process to deliver on that model and then study and adjust over time, both the model and your process for onboarding and training leaders. So that is primary work. So we really are contributing to helping them have continuous improvement in their entire leadership team through that part of our work with them. Then the other thing that we also help, that other tier that we contribute to in our partnership, is that senior leadership strengthening piece. So this actually was a study adjust in our approach, is that as we were working across dozens of healthcare organizations to help them improve and grow using our framework, our formula, and our approach, what we realized was that there was starting to be these patterns of what we call now the 7 barriers to change. So we were starting to see these patterns where certain barriers or challenges were actually getting in the way of the success of faster, easier, more successful change and growth and improvement. So one of these barriers or challenges was actually dysfunction at the senior leadership team level. And so as we noticed that senior leadership teams are struggling to come together to do this really crucial, important, stressful, impactful work as a senior leadership team, that if they were dysfunctional in any way collectively as a team, that's going to have a negative ripple effect and or negative impact on the positive change that they were actually the chief stewards of. And so their dysfunction was getting in the way of that. And we saw it enough to believe that it's true that it pretty much is always likely going to be there in some way, shape, or form. And so we started to get really proactive on this. We felt the need to do that, to not wait to see if it was a problem or to recognize the problem and then intervene at that point, but really to get proactive about strengthening senior leadership teams continuously. And is there a process and also a systematic approach and mechanism that we can put in place to synergize and strengthen the entire senior leadership team? So that is part of now the approach, that when we're working with our partner organizations, that in addition to that plan and that process for developing the entire leadership team, we also have another specific way to help them create a plan and a systematic process for the focuses of continuous improvement of that senior leadership team as a whole. So those are the two areas where our company is most involved, and those tiers where we provide the most help with continuous improvement for leaders. However, we are called to assist on occasion with individual leader coaching and support, and that might be through, maybe we're coaching the team leader of an employee experience team, which is also part of our model. And so we have direct access, either one-on-one or through group coaching with those individual leaders, so we can serve as a helpful coach and provide support and resources for individual leaders that are serving as team leaders. We also have group interactions between CEOs, individual actions with CEOs and initiative champions. So there's these other ways where we might have access to individual leaders in an organization to serve as part of their efforts to grow and improve as a leader, really part and parcel to the work that we're engaged to do with them overall. That would be the scope or the context in which we might be individually working with a CEO or a middle manager or a chief nursing officer, etc. So when it comes to one-on-one executive coaching or a middle manager who maybe has their sights on rising up into senior leadership and they want ongoing leadership coaching and support, So this is beyond maybe getting into a graduate program or some sort of formal leadership development where you're really going to be working on knowledge and skill things. But when we're actually talking about leadership, executive coaching, we're mostly talking about the type that we see in the realm of emotional intelligence, mindset, growth mindset, relationship skills, some of those more, some people might call them softer skills. I think they're pretty critical, even though some might call them soft. But some of these emotional intelligent type skills are the ones where individual leaders or executive leaders really might need the most CQI effort from outside coaching or executive coaching. And that is not at all what our organization does. We don't currently, and we don't have it on our strategic plan currently at Capstone Leadership Solutions, to provide one-on-one executive coaching for leaders who are looking for that type of improvement in their individual leadership in the year ahead. But as I mentioned, in our partner organizations, certainly all leaders are enveloped into CQI for leadership through the leadership model and the ongoing leadership development process for all leaders in the organization. And if they're a senior leader, they're involved in the senior leadership strengthening activities and approach that we support them with as well. So as your organization is looking ahead to is looking this next year, and you're looking ahead to your plans for growth and improvement and the activities and the resources around that, those are the 3 tiers I would compel you to consider related to strengthening the leadership of your organization, is really in one or more of those tiers, and really maybe assessing, how are you doing in each of those tiers? Do you have executive coaching for senior leaders? Is it even needed? Or can you do this internally? Is this something that maybe you just make sure that each of your senior leaders have individual plans for their own growth? And if you're the CEO, if you have, 2 or 8 or however many vice presidents that report to you, I would be compelled as a CEO to make sure that each one of my senior leaders individually is on a pathway of continued improvement and growth, that we're never done getting better, that we're never done improving, no matter how great they are currently in their existing role, always getting better, always opportunities to improve and create more impact from our leadership. But very importantly, in our view, is having that CQI plan of sorts for your entire senior leadership team as a collective, as a whole, how you work together, how you function together, not each individual, but collectively as a team. What is your plan for strengthening your senior leadership team and continually improving that team? And then as well, that big tier, which is your entire leadership team. Do you have a model? Do you have a process to continually improve your leadership team? Those are 3 areas where, whether you do it yourself or you engage outside help or a combination of both, I would encourage you to consider addressing all 3 of these tiers as you continue to improve the individual and the collective functioning of your leadership team, not just for the sake of improving leaders or the leadership team, but truly because of the tremendous impact that leadership has on elevating workplace culture, creating continuous improvement, growing organizations, and securing their mission for the future. It takes leadership. And if you're looking for outside help, in particular for those 2 tiers I mentioned, CQI for your entire leadership team and continuous improvement and strengthening and synergizing of your senior leadership team, that is part of the work we do and the scope of work with a capstone partnership. And we're always delighted to have those important conversations with key decision makers at healthcare organizations related to the current state of their improvement and growth efforts and how the capstone framework formula and transformation approach might work for them, including these areas of leadership strengthening. So if you'd like to engage in one of those conversations to explore that further, capstoneleadership.net is our website, and there is a contact us page. And you can reach us there to schedule a call or just drop us a note and we will follow up with you. And we invite you to tune in each Wednesday for another episode of Culture Change RX. We're very excited about the episodes we have planned for the months ahead. We've got some great guests coming up, some hospital CEOs, some very specific subject matter experts as guests, and also some of our great coaching team will join us here. And of course, I'll be back once in a while with these solo episodes. So we thank you for tuning in each week and sharing the podcast with others in your network. And also, we'd appreciate if you could rate and review the podcast on whichever platform you are listening to Culture Change RX. Thank you now. See you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Culture Change RX. If you found value in today's episode and you are a believer in fostering change in healthcare, join us in making a difference. Follow, rate, and review our podcast on your favorite platform. Share it with colleagues and your network. Together, we can make a lasting impact. Until next week, keep inspiring positive change.